This
last year.
conference will now be
Before.
recorded.
Okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, there was one transfer, but that was before the end of the last fiscal year.
Right.
And so there haven't been any transfers since then. So we really don't know how, the numbers yet. Of course, there were some things that they saved money on too, like for instance, the lifeguards didn't start when they would normally start, and there must be other things too, but I just don't have an answer to that. I think we'll find that out.
Would the transfers be the charges for the people to go into the beach, the out-of-towners?
No, the transfers
West-
would be
West Side.
within their budget. This would be a transfer within their budget if they exceeded what they had in the Park and Rec budget. When they exceeded how much the funds that they could spend in a certain area, then they would need to go to the Board of Finance and request that they would be able to transfer it from a different area of their budget. So, but there haven't been anything moved around. It hasn't been anything moved around yet. So I guess that's just going to be continued, because I'm sure that we know that the security guards or the parks monitors were not cheap. I'll get to that subject later and what we're going to talk about. But let me just go through a couple of parks, and then I'm going to ask for a couple of people to give reports, and then we'll finish with the full talk about this summer. Okay. Tilly Park, they've been trying to figure out the geese situation at Tilly. Well, they did get some feedback from the public that was against the dogs, and so I think right now that no decision's been made as to whether they were going to try to hire the folks that have the dogs chase the geese off. So that's that. Cherry Lawn, and Patty's going to update us on the basketball court.
Hi. So there were 4 bids. So just to give you a background, the Parks and Rec Commission had moved forward to agree to move forward on the basketball court. Obviously, the Board of Selectmen gave us $15,000 back in their budget back in January, February. We moved it forward through the Board of Finance. We voted on the RTM. It was accepted. And then you can't start a project, obviously, until the end of the fiscal. So we couldn't move forward, even though we were looking forward to try to have it go as soon as possible. You had to wait until the money was part of the new fiscal. So in August, Pam put a notice in the paper, and then you have to wait 3 weeks to allow for bids to come in. We had the bid opening the end of August, where they open up the bids. We were happy to get 4 bids. So that was great, from 4 different companies. And then folks went on vacation because they all had worked very hard, Pam and everybody. And so they're back after Labor Day, and they're just going through and examining the 4 bids. So I spent some time going through quickly the bids to give you feedback. And I will say, the core of it is to redo the basketball court in the same size. It is 80 by 40. But the concerns from 1 or 2 of the people, or several people from the Parks and Rec Commission, there were 2 trees on the north side, and they wanted to move the trees back. And so part of the bid was to push the court back. So part of the RFP was to shorten the court to 70 by 40. That was kind of the one aspect of it. And then there was an alternate 1, 2, and 3. So alternate 1 was to push it back and make it 80 by 40, as the Parks and Rec Commission had said they wanted to do. And that moves it back from the roots. The alternative 2 was to make it even bigger, 80 by 45, which wasn't really something that the Parks and Rec Commission had really necessarily supported. That was just throwing in an alternate to see where the numbers came out. And the third thing included the brand new physical poles, backboards, and the pads on it. So bids came in, and I have to just tell you quickly, it was a little complicated because the RFP may not have necessarily represented what everyone on the Parks and Rec Commission and some of the people who were doing the fundraising for the additional amount felt maybe in the way it should have been written out. But be that as it may, we did get 4 bids, which was great. My going through it all, what I was going to take you through was the concern of the low cost bid. Sometimes we look to get the low cost bid, and that's not always the best way to do things, as we've experienced in some of the other Parks and Rec and even Public Works and things like that. And so with the low cost bid, one of my concerns were there were a bunch of additional things that I felt that Parks and Rec and the Public Works Committee could have done, like clearing the land that we're moving it back 10 feet, or clearing off the green area that has grown up upon the trees. Sorry. I don't know whose that is. Okay.
I'm sorry, Bill is calling me. Hang on. I'm gonna close.
So net is, and Adele, I'm conscious of time for you.
That's okay, we're all right.
I was basically gonna say 3 of the bids, Hinling, Davis, and Meehan, were kind of all in the same ballpark. Hinling was the highest, followed by Davis and Meehan were right there together, and then Mist Hill was way down. And so I think that gave some of us cause for concern, like why would it be way down? What I was prepared to take you through today was because they were doing more of a patch job, they weren't excavating it like the other 3 were, which is what we all had really asked for, both the people who were donating and the Parks and Rec Commission. They had wanted bids that included excavating it and then laying the new asphalt. And so when you looked at the low cost bid, it ended up actually being a higher cost because there were all these additional costs for clearing land and for patching and touching up and asphalting things, or not asphalting, taking away some of the damaged asphalt. That was going to be $3,200 to remove damaged parts of the asphalt and repave that little section. Yet 2 years ago, when I'd worked with Ed Gentel to start this project, he had given me a bid of $3,360 to excavate the entire thing. So that's where these numbers I started to question them around the whole RFP process. It didn't necessarily make sense. Again, reiterating that, there were these additional costs laid in there to reinforce the fence. Well, again, Public Works or Parks and Rec can do that, or clear and haul away overgrowth. Public Works and Parks and Rec can do that. So, but I got an email about half an hour before this meeting, Adele, I don't know if you'd received that or not, from Pam that said 2 out of the 4 bids are not going, even though everything was accepted, they're not going to be considered because they weren't answered correctly. So one of them was that low cost bid, and the other one was on the opposite end on the high cost bid. So the really good news is the 2 bids that we have are right together, very close to each other, and that's Davis Tennis and that's Meehan Paving. And so I don't know that you necessarily need or want me to go through the details of that.
No, that's good, Patty. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
I know that the commission is not finished with this, so they'll continue to work on it.
New news might have made things a lot easier, Adele.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. No, I thank you. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree.
Adele, I have Bill on the phone here because he was having trouble connecting, so I
wrote. So you got it,
right, Bill?
I think. I kind of thought that's why he was. Yeah, that's why you were waving your phone around. So that's good.
Getting good at this.
The one last thing I would like to say about this, Adele, and you and I talked about this last night, is that if so the bids are basically at so if you look at alternate 1, which is really what everyone from Parks and Rec Commission wanted, what we who were involved in the fundraising wanted, if it was, so it, Davis was at 25,700 and Meehan was at 23,120. So just to recap for you all, we were able to get $15,000 from the selectmen's budget, and we had a donation from a neighbor of 5,000. So that brings it to 20,000, but we have an additional 5,000. We have additional 5,000 if needed, which it will be needed. But our goal is to try and come in under the $10,000 donation mark, because then it doesn't have to go to the RTM. Not that I think there'll be any problem. I think it'll overwhelmingly, people will approve it, but it'll slow down the whole process, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so we're hoping, both of those bids will work out. And the last thing that I want to point out is, as we talked about Highland Field, the asphalt pathway, which everyone is really enjoying. It's so wonderful to see kids riding their bikes and all of, rollerblading, people walking their dogs on leash. It's been great use of the pathway. Unfortunately, that pathway could not be laid down in last fall as planned, because asphalt companies will tell you that they can't lay down on surfaces beyond the end of October or really early November, because the surface gets too hard. Roadways are a little separate, but on land, they won't do it after that. So unfortunately, we had to bump it back to this spring, and it wasn't done till like right around, I think it was Memorial Day, or right around April, end of April, May. So our goal, again, is to try and get, whatever bid they choose. I have no dog in the hunt of what they choose. We just want a company that's going to do a good job. And I think these two seem to have all the markings of doing that, and be able to get it done soon, because it's been a decade in decadence and we're ready to go, and we want to get it done before the ground hardens. Thank you.
Well, that's cool that you've got enough people that are willing to give, contribute. I'm sure the town will appreciate that, and I'm glad it's within striking distance. It's not so large that it's too much. Any other questions from anybody about this?
Just a point is that more than likely, we know how much our boys and girls love playing house basketball, and more than likely that's not going to happen this winter or kind of, the season. So it'd be great to have an outside option for them to play.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed on that one. Next on the agenda, Cheryl's going to give us a real quick update on the Pear Tree Beach Building Committee, which of course hasn't met, but she's going to update us.
Yeah, good evening. As of our last meeting, which was May 6th, we were on hold, as we all know, and because of COVID-19. You all received, Adele was nice enough to send out Mike Spro's response to Bob Lyons, and you all had received that, but in case you don't remember what it all said, I'm just going to let you know that we are still in the process with the application to Connecticut DEP to raise the parking lot. That has not been completed yet by Sampson and Weston and Sampson rather, and we're waiting for that to be completed. As of now, we had $144,000. We've spent $140.20 for the design services, and we expect to, under the approval process and the application fees for DEP, to probably spend around another $30,000. So that's where we stand. We're not gonna, as far as I know, we're not having a meeting until May, and that's all that's been going on.
Okay.
Cheryl, could I ask a quick question? Is there
Sure.
a view on how high how high in the application to raise the parking lot, how high they're going to request?
It was discussed in the May meeting, approximately 12 inches, but that doesn't mean 12 inches straight across. There's different heights and levels of the parking lot now. So I think it would be a maximum of 12, but I have not seen the application yet. We're waiting for the application to be completed and then sent to us before it's sent to the DEP. We should see it before it's gone up.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Cara. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Then I'll move on to just talk about kind of the beaches in general. Obviously, it's been busy this summer. It's been hectic. Hectic for our for the Parks and Rec department and everybody involved. And I think they've done a great job. You know, it's been a lot. It's been a lot managing the amount of the busyness of it all and trying to get it right. And I know that Pam and Lori from the commission and our first selectman also have, you know, they've spent a lot of time at this. So what has happened there? I'm just going to give you a brief update of my discussion with Lori, and then there'll probably be a couple points we want to discuss. First of all, they hired the extra security, which was park monitors. Those were, I think everybody knows what they were. They were at the beach, but they also went to our different parks too, and had a presence there. Those have finished. They have stopped that for now. The executive order for Darien residents only on the weekends at the beaches remains in effect.
No, after Labor Day, it ended. It just ended.
I don't think so. But anyway,
No, I talked to the guard on Sunday, and as of Sunday, yesterday, they've stopped that. So they were letting people in yesterday. They were paying the $48. So
okay, that Lori told me the opposite. So
well, the guards let them in.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Now, it was just Fridays and excuse me, Saturdays and Sundays where they couldn't come in. So they could come in on the Monday of Labor Day weekend too. Pear Tree Beach will have a gate guard on weekends through the month of September, or as long as that order is in place, whatever it's the case here. Weed Beach will have a gate guard 7 days a week. And I think they'll reassess. I don't think they're really sure. They're going to look and see how long they need that gate guard. You know, there's nothing final there. They're going to be flexible about that, I think.
Yeah. Do you know how they decided on 7 days a week for one park and just the weekend for the other? Is it more activity at Weed?
I believe that has always been the traditional, excuse. But that, you know, that's a question to ask the commission, you know. That's definitely a question to ask the commission.
So Adele, you heard that Pear Tree's only going to have the guard there on weekends?
Yes.
And not during the week?
Yes.
So if they're going to allow out-of-towners in, now.
I think yeah, exactly. And I don't know how that I think that might affect it, Cheryl, but I don't know that for sure. And in the past, have they stopped the gate guard at Pear Tree after Labor Day?
Yeah, in the past, this is the first year that we're going to have them to the end of September. But
yeah,
I
think
we're having them to the end of the September, that if out-of-towners wanted to come in, they would have to pay. So now you're telling me they have to pay on the weekend, but they don't have to pay during the week.
No, I don't think that's the case. They have to pay now. They would pay then too during the week. I'm not saying that at all.
There's no guard at the gatehouse.
Correct. You're right. Correct. You're right.
There's no way to pay.
Well, all I know is what I was told, Cheryl, and what I was told was that there will be guards on the weekend, which they haven't had in the past, but they will have them now through the end of September. And it's possible it might continue, you know, after that. That's yet to be decided. Okay. That's all I know.
Who decides that?
The commission decides that. That's their job.
There's only 2 weeks
I
left.
was, we this morning and there was no guard.
Excuse me, Sheila?
I said I was at Wee Beach this morning and there was no guard.
Okay, well, that makes sense then. That's correct, would be correct. The Weed Beach, oh, really? Well, they should have been there. They should have been there, I think.
Right, and there was a guard at Pear Tree today.
Okay.
So this is just all very convoluted.
Well, it's probably that perhaps everybody wasn't on the same page. I think that's probably it. So we will have to find out what it really is. And the next, we'll have to get to that later. Let's move on to the concessions, because that was the other thing that happened this summer. There was no concession at the beaches this summer. It was to be the last year of Uncle's contract with the town to run the concessions at the beaches, and they could not do it. And so in the end, I think Rory's offered some food on the weekends at Weed. I'm not sure what happened at Pear Tree. The other thing that happened was the Park and Rec Department did do a survey on what people's food preferences would be. And they found that useful. And then at the last, at the August meeting of the commission, they had a concession consultant gave and you all saw his written report. That he gave a report to the commission, which they seem to have a lot of questions. We had 2 members that had sent in questions and comments, both Jen and Cara, about his report. And I think, Cara, do you want to say anything?
I'm happy to let you keep going. I'm happy to comment.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to give any details on what he said, other than that they definitely are, the commission is definitely still thinking about what they're going to do with the concessions. And they haven't made any decisions. And I think they're probably even still looking for a little more information from other towns as well. But if you want to make any comments, that's fine with me. This would be the time.
I'll just, if people haven't seen the meeting, it's worthwhile watching, just because the consultant who was hired had very big ideas and a sense of wanting to have a lot of volume. His background is more in water parks and so
Apples to oranges.
Apples to oranges, fine. Just for me, and I think I sensed this from other folks, it felt like it wasn't the right fit for the culture of Darien. And it also was just getting to his economics was a really big stretch, but it's entertaining to watch.
Thanks. I think they felt like there was at least a few bits of information that they could make some use of, but to be continued for sure.
I know that Rory's was a hit down at Weed Beach, because my kids went down there and they loved it.
That's good to hear. Lori Boris said that she thought that that they seem to have been happy with what they, with how it went. They being being Rory's, but once again they're gonna, they haven't reviewed the whole thing, and it was just sort of the town made no money off of that. It was just trying to get somebody there who would give us a little so there'd be something, just so there'd be something for the town, and wasn't to make money for sure. It was just to try to make it nicer.
Feed the people.
Adele, I want to just hit on Pear Tree. Pear Tree, I was under the impression that Rory's was going to do both beaches. Jennifer's Kitchen was going to do one weekend, then Rory's another weekend, and swap back and forth, but that didn't happen. So Jennifer's Kitchen from Tokenique Road did Pear Tree.
Okay.
I thought at times she did pretty well. There were quite a few people on the beach, but on the other hand, there were days she closed up at 2:30. Now maybe she ran out of food, but the ice cream truck then came in, and he's made a a bundle this summer.
I bet.
And so she had hot dogs and she had, you know, condiments and stuff, but it would have been nicer if they had stayed longer, and it would have been nicer for both beaches to have Rory's and Jennifer's Kitchen there on Labor Day, because the beach was packed on Labor Day and there was no one there. So
really? Okay.
and at either beach. And when you said we didn't make any money, so we just asked them to come in and try this out. And
Absolutely.
they use the kitchen facilities, the freezers and the refrigerator.
Not much.
And they kept the food there.
Yeah,
And
they used some of the refrigeration, and I think, yeah, that was basically it.
okay.
Yeah, no, but no, they didn't. Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, the town didn't make any money. Yeah.
Cheryl, your comment made me wonder, what's the difference between a food truck and an ice cream truck? So I know that as the beaches were thinking about concession options, zoning wasn't allowing for food trucks, even though I think there was a lot of interest in the flexibility. And what is the zoning that allows for an ice cream truck?
I don't know what the zoning regs are for an ice cream truck at all, Kara, but I do know that what was discussed last year, and we hit upon it at the building committee, that when you have a food truck come in, they're there for a certain amount of time, running generators. It's a loud situation. It's also got, depending on what they're cooking or what they're doing, smoke and things like that. And I think the town doesn't allow food trucks, period, in town, except for special occasions, such as special permits that they have to get for like at Tilly Pond Park and things like that. So I would suggest that you ask Jeremy about that, but we just hit upon it slightly at the building committee, and it would be there for a longer period of time, and it was going to be running generators and things like that.
Helpful, thank you.
That's what I remember too.
They had a permit for the ice cream truck, and I know that one weekend, one day they came, it was a woman in a different truck, and she forgot the permit, and the guy would not let her in. She was so mad, and she's like, I have the permit at home. It was a different truck, and he would not let her in.
Good for him.
Well, good for him, I think. Not good for the kids that didn't get their ice cream, but good for the cart.
And kudos to us doing two restaurants in town and letting them try it out instead of someone from out of town. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that just sort of leads me to the other thing I talked with Lori about. They don't know where that's going to go. And also with the whole management of the capacity at the beaches, the walk-ins, the parking passes, are you going to charge? Are you not going to charge? They've got a lot to talk about. They got to decide about, whether they're going to continue with these park monitors. Is it a good idea? I really think the commission actually has a lot on their plate in the next 4 or 5 months. A lot of things that they're going to have to nail down for next summer. And the beaches, this summer just highlighted, the whole business about how many. I don't know about you, but I was amazed at the number of walk-ins at Weed Beach. And those numbers were from sort of, was that 4th of, I can't remember if it was 4th of July or it was earlier, but it was just a lot of people. So anyway, I think they're going to be addressing that for sure.
Well,
I'd like to do a shout out.
Walk-ins, they have a problem at Pear Tree because they have they have a problem at Weed too, because they park at Henley, and walk down. But at Weed Beach, what we observed this summer and other summers too, is that they're not, even out of towners are not going through the gate and paying the $48. They're dropping people off up by the picnic area, and they're walking in that way, and riding bikes in that way. And so when they were checking out of towners on weekends, they're not, because they were all coming in anyway. And somebody would drop them off, and then they'd call and somebody come and pick them up at the end of the day. So if they were keeping track as to how many people were coming and going, it wasn't going to be an accurate count at Pear Tree. On Labor Day, when they allowed people in because it was a Monday, we had 6 out-of-towners as of 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and Weed had 4. So there were 10 according to the guards, there were 10 people at both beaches, or carloads, let's put it that way. So some of it's being tracked and some of it isn't being tracked.
Just like to give a shout out. Can I give a shout out real quick to Bob and his team from West Tech, which is the security group that Pam had hired. I think they've done an excellent job. I'm in the parks, was in the parks every day, and I was at both beaches every day. I tried to make it a point to drive down and see how crowded it was and give Pam good feedback and be able to give you guys feedback as well. Cheryl, I know you were at Pear Tree a lot as well. And Sandy, I know you were down there with the boats as well, and everybody probably. But those guys, Bob and his crew, but Bob in particular, he really understood, I felt, how to handle the environment of the town of Darien, which you alluded to earlier, Kara, on another subject. He wasn't overly aggressive, but he would just walk up, he'd kind of saunter up and chat with everybody. If he felt there were too many people, he would have a conversation about them and separate them and move on. But even on the busiest days, like 4th of July and Labor Day, I think they really worked really hard to help keep our town safe. And if you had asked me in the beginning of the summer if I thought it was worth spending additional money to do it next year, I'm not sure I would have said yes, but I think they did an outstanding job. So I support them, the Parks and Rec, in trying to have them come back for next year. Hopefully we don't have COVID and we don't have the overabundance of all the out-of-towners, as you were saying, Cheryl, but I think they did a good job.
So you physically sat on the beach at Pear Tree this summer?
All the time, Cheryl. You're down on the left. I'm down on the right, babe. We got to meet in the middle.
Let me know.
Daily.
I agree with Patty. And I agree with Patty. I thought in the beginning I was not loving them, and by the end, they were doing their job. They were doing a really good job, and they did know the people. They knew my family pulling in the boat.
Yeah.
They were really good.
Yeah.
I think I kind of echo that. The bit that I was around, I was not particularly impressed to begin with, and then it seemed to work better. I know that Lori said she thought that it also was a help in the other parks. That, like, you know, the person that didn't have their dog on the lead, all of a sudden they saw the monitor and they put the dog on the lead. So yeah, that kind of thing. So it's nice to have a presence.
And not just animals in the parks, but also suddenly large teenage groups gathering. You know, he'd kind of pull on, saunter right on in and say, all right, separate, you know. So it wasn't just dispersing crowds 6 feet distance in the beaches. He also did it at the parks quite a bit, which was good when there was gatherings.
Any other comments, guys? I'm about finished with my report. If there's any more comments that people want to say about the parks over the summer, feel free. Okay. All righty. I did want to tell everybody that I think there's, the RTM meeting is next Monday, the 21st, but the commission is, was scheduled to meet this Wednesday, and I believe they're going to change that to the following Wednesday. So you should pay attention to the town website. So they were when I was talking to Lori, she was trying to get a quorum for the following Wednesday, I think it's the 23rd.
Adele, if she emails you that it gets pushed, could you kindly email all of us and let us know? That would be helpful if she sends you an email.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. I may not know until Pam sends out the information before the meeting, but that is the plan as of now, is to push it to the 23rd. Well, it would have to be
considered a special meeting if they're moving it, so it would need
Correct.
48 hours in advance notice.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Okay. Well, if there's is there any other business? We're good. That's a nice, efficient, you were right, Patty. It was going to be a nice, efficient meeting, no problems. Very quick. Okay, everybody, may I have a motion to adjourn then?
So moved.
Aye.
We'll see you guys next month. So good to
Great.
see you,
Nice to see
actually.
everybody.
Thanks, Kate.
Bye.
Thank you, Kate.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you, Al. Thank you.
Stay
welcome.
safe.
Okay.
Thank you, Diane.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. I heard some of the
They're
stuff.
still on here, I think. Adele
No,
is.
not many of us, only a couple.
Adele
Bye.
and Cheryl and
Bye, Bill.